Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm a writer and a storyteller by trade, and I've kind of become a bit of an accidental car-free advocate. So I have been tasked today with convincing all of you to get rid of your cars before you leave here. So here's how this thing is going to shake down. I'm going to give about 10 to 12 minutes of super compelling testimony. And then we have agents from CarMax who are going to be in the lobby. So if you could just grab your keys from your bag or your backpack or your purse, and they will give you an estimate. You'll drop your keys in a bucket, and you will all leave here better people. It's just really simple. So. I'm kidding, of course, because if I encouraged all of you to live my radical, awesome lifestyle, it wouldn't be so radical and awesome for me to do it. So I'll let you keep your cars for today. A little over a year ago, we hosted the Super Bowl here in Indianapolis. You'll remember that's the game where in the final drive, it began on the New England 20-yard line, where Tom Brady's first two passes fell incomplete, and then he was sacked by Tuck on the third down, leaving the Patriots 16 yards from a first down and forcing them to use their final timeout. I don't remember that. I had to get all of that from the internet. And that's why you could probably tell that I was reading all that. I don't know what most of those words mean. But what I do know is that the Super Bowl foisted us onto a national stage, and it brought to the forefront, well, a lot of us seemed pretty shocked at how well we did. You know, most of us here in Indianapolis. And there were a couple things that had long been brewing that became super evident in our big Super Bowl moment. The first of all was that in the few years I've lived in and around Indianapolis, the city's gotten more and more acclaim. We keep showing up on these lists of the best places to live and the best places to be young and the happiest places to visit. And I couldn't help but notice that, that many conversations I overheard here in the city by Indianapolis residents still talked about Indianapolis as if it were something we should be ashamed of or bored by. A lot of the conversations that we have about our own city show this permeating insecurity. And second, in that Super Bowl moment, and perhaps more importantly, it brought to the forefront this long simmering conversation about public transit and the need for better public transit in the city of Indianapolis. What I want to do in my short time before you today is this. I want to ask if, number one, are you comfortable with the way that we talk about this city? And number two, I have a suggestion that maybe is a pretty simple way for us to change the way we think and talk about Indianapolis. So one of the many reasons that I'm somewhat clueless about football is because the only sport that ever really captivated me when I was a child was figure skating. I loved it all. I loved the lighting and the costumes and the choreography and the men in spandex. When all of the boys in my class wanted to be Barry Bonds or Michael Jordan, I wanted to be a world-famous figure skater like Nancy Kerrigan or Scotty Hamilton. My small town, however, was far away from the nearest ice rink. So I did the next best thing. I asked for a pair of rollerblades one Christmas. I stole this disco lycra pantsuit thing from the community theater where I did shows as a kid, and I invented figure blading. I would choreograph elaborate routines in my parents' driveway, and at the risk of sounding like a cocky jerk, I was good. I want you to close your eyes and imagine traveling down my parents' street in a small town in Indiana in 1995. There I am, a chubby 12-year-old, stuffed like a can of Pillsbury biscuit dough into this disco onesie, turning triple sow cows in my rollerblades while Celine Dion blared from a boombox. Which is to say, I've spent a lot of my life being a little bit different than most other people. I've spent a lot of time, maybe as many of you in this audience have, learning how to be comfortable in my own skin. My transition from that small town to this big city has been progressive. I moved downtown Indianapolis last year after having spent most of my life in various suburbs. As a kid, I remember coming to downtown Indianapolis for various events at Market Square Arena, like the National Figure Skating Championships and Disney on Ice. I mean, I cannot put too fine a point on this. I loved ice skating as a kid. And I'm telling you, the understanding at the time, whether it was urban legend or not, was that downtown Indianapolis was not a place where you really wanted to spend time. So I would watch Ariel, the Little Mermaid, skate around in her shimmering green fin, and then my mom would whisk us back into the minivan and get us out of Indianapolis. Cut to several decades later. I now live just a few blocks from the former site of Market Square Arena, and I walk everywhere, all times, day and night, and I've never felt like my safety was threatened. Slowly, I started to notice more and more as people talk about Indianapolis as their bridge to someplace else, or where they end up because they can't end up in another city. It started to make sense. That the way I felt, the discomfort I felt in my own weird chubby body rollerblading around on the driveway, the insecurity that I sometimes still feel as an adult when I feel like I'm not worthy of good things, or that I'm not a great person, is pretty similar to the insecurity that a lot of us feel in our own city. We've collectively convinced ourselves that we're somehow not worthy, and we're stuck in this adolescent moment of questioning our own happiness and the great things that happen here in Indianapolis. We have this adolescent need to apologize for the ways that we're different, or perhaps a little clumsy, or maybe slightly awkward. Now, we're a city with some very real problems, and I don't want to undercut that. Our crime rate is somewhat higher than it should be. Our schools are performing a little bit worse than they should be. But as a relentless cornball optimist, I have to rail against this idea that we as a people can only love something once it's already perfect. So today, I will stand up here and say it. I love Indianapolis. And because I'm pretty much exclusively drawn to projects that don't make any money, I've dedicated a lot of my life to convincing other people to love this city too. I decided to put down roots here, but I didn't really know what that meant. Until one night, this mysterious voice whispered to me, "Cole, get rid of your car." Okay, so there was no mysterious voice, but this is my time on stage, and I've always wanted to be whispered to by some mysterious voice. Like Patrick Swayze in Ghost, sitting behind me and teaching me how to throw a clay pot. And anyway, "Get rid of your car," this voice said to me. For a moment, I panicked. I mean, getting rid of your car in most major cities wouldn't be a big deal, but this is Indianapolis. We love our cars. And beyond that, our biggest gift to the world is that we host this huge annual event where highly trained, highly paid individuals drive around in circles. "But mysterious voice," I said, "I love my car." "No, you don't," this mysterious voice responded. "You've never liked cars. You find them hot and time-consuming. And look at you, for God's sake. You're a figure blader. You don't know how to fix or maintain a car." So I mustered every bit of courage I had gained from learning how to be an outsider and a weirdo, and I braced myself and I sold my car. I thought I might face backlash. I mean, I was prepared to tell people that I got a DUI because it seemed easier than telling them the truth. It seemed easier than telling them that I got rid of my car because cars are expensive, that I did it because I wanted to put down firm roots in my community and in my city, that I wanted to force myself to shop at my corner store, and because I believe in all those hippy-dippy things like preserving the rainforests and saving the whales, that I did it because usually parallel parking would push me to my emotional breaking point. Now, I imagine getting rid of this giant gas-guzzling ball and chain would be a little bit like those infographics that you see about what happens in the human body when someone quits smoking. That a week later, I would feel so much better about my life, and 3 months later, I would never want to get in a car again, and in 10 years, I would be the most perfect human being on earth. And the truth is, a lot of days being without a car in a city like Indianapolis is the shittiest thing ever. I mean, when I just want to drive around or get somewhere quickly, or I just want to walk through the fashion mall and try on chukka boots that I can't really afford. And a lot of times in a city like this, you feel like you are being punished for doing something wrong, even when you're trying to do something that you think is good. Like, when I'm walking through a drainage ditch to go get frozen yogurt. A lot of days it's a trust exercise, learning how to be on someone else's schedule. I used to be late for everything, and now that I've had to depend on buses and other people, I'm pretty much pathologically early for things. I have to ask friends and my boyfriend for rides places when I don't like asking anyone for anything. I've had to depend on a bus system that, although they're doing really great things with the resources they've got, they're not exactly always on time. In fact, when my boyfriend lived in the northern part of the city and I lived downtown, several nights a week I would take the bus up to his apartment after he got off work. This was an hour-long ride, and I learned to love it because it meant that I could read a book or flip through Instagram and just not think. In those 3 months, the bus was never late one time. So when he moved downtown, he had never been on the bus, and I convinced him, we'll take the bus one time to the state fair. We'll go and we'll eat our $75 of really terrible, unhealthy food, and then we'll stumble comatose back onto the bus and we'll be home, and it will be super simple. The bus to the fair was nearly an hour late. The bus home never came. We walked from the fairgrounds all the way back downtown. And I felt like I was showing him that little cartoon frog with the top hat that would sing and dance. But when I would open the box to show him, you know, there was that frog just looking up at us with his eyes and going ribbit and being a pretty average frog. In spite of it all, though, I'm convinced that if what I felt for this city when I was driving around it was puppy love, what I feel now that I have the opportunity to bike it and bus it and walk around it is something closer to full-blown wedded bliss. I have friends. I want to acknowledge that I have friends who are doing badass... Yeah, I do have friends. In spite of the figure blading, I do have friends these days. But they are doing this badass activist work to fight for improved transit in the city of Indianapolis. They're showing up for public hearings and going to rallies, and they are my heroes. They're writing their senators, and I honestly believe that if we want to change this city in a really profound way, if we want to improve it for the generations that are going to come after us, we need to have really serious conversations about public transit. But like I said earlier, I'm a storyteller, and the story I want to tell you today is this: that it's time that we change the conversation about our city and about ourselves. What I've learned from getting out from behind the steering wheel is that we have to stop living in a city that could be and start living in a city that is. I'm asking you to get out of your car one time a week. When you are going to drive somewhere, take the bus instead. Pick a day of the week where from sunrise till sunset, you don't get in your car one time. Your world will get smaller. Your life will move slower, and you will not be able to go all the places that you want to go. But maybe in that slowness, you'll catch yourself saying one of those statements like, well, it's a pretty good restaurant for Indianapolis, and shift it to saying, damn, that's a good restaurant. Maybe you'll get a flat tire on your bike and you'll have to walk 2 miles, and you'll notice in one of the buildings that you pass downtown an intricate little hand-carved detail in the stonework. Maybe you'll have a lady sitting next to you on the bus singing old Alicia Keys songs at full volume into your ear. And you'll be able to remember on that important lesson where your elementary school guidance counselor said to you that what makes us different is what makes us special. Maybe the Super Bowl and the Indianapolis 500 make a city like Indianapolis good, but maybe our future willingness to get out of our cars and come together with groups of strangers could make us great. On that one night of the week that you're out of your car, maybe you'll stop being ashamed of that tag of being labeled as Midwestern, and you'll start to embrace all the soft edges and the charm and the warm things that that term can carry. I love this city, and if we want to raise this place up for the next generation, we have to start living like this place is important and exhilarating and not to be missed. It's hard to do those things when you're breezing past them at 55 miles an hour. Instead of being the chubby, awkward kid who sits at home and watches Olympic figure skating on the TV, we need to stuff ourselves into that weird onesie and go out there and invent our own sport and give ourselves the gold medal for it. Thank you.